Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at the second of these newest Soundstrike figures that have just recently started to hit Walmarts here in the United States, and this is probably my most anticipated figure from Mattel for a very long time because it's one of my favorite species of dinosaur. This is the Majungasaurus, and it is the first time a Majungasaurus has entered the Jurassic Park toy line so far. So again, a very momentous day, a very exciting day for me here to have an incredibly cool looking Majungasaurus to take a look at. As far as the packaging, it's pretty much your standard Primal Attack packaging with the very awkward glare from Owen and Blue down here, once again staring at us as if we just let one rip. And then we have the very cool image here of the background, that kind of Primal Attack type of a look. And then if we turn it around and take a look at the back, we have sort of an image displaying some of the action features of our Majungasaurus, as well as an image down here in the corner showing off two other figures that are in this line of Soundstrike figures, which would be the Irritator and Parasaurolophus. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break this out of the packaging right now. So here is our Majungasaurus, and at first glance out of the packaging, it definitely looks really nice. The paint job was one thing that I wasn't super sold on initially when I had seen the prototype images of it, but here in person I will say that it actually looks a lot better than I was expecting it to look, and I definitely dig the greenish coloration of the body. I think the blue is a little bit weird because it almost has like a glossy appearance on the face. Again, these are just sort of first impressions, but for the most part, I think it does look really quite nice overall. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that as far as the detailing of the head sculpt goes, it's really nicely done. Very beautiful scale detail all over the face, including the lower jaw, and then of course the upper side of the head. And I think it looks really good overall as far as that detailing goes. Some of the scale detail here up on the top of the head is a little harder to pick out with the darker colors used, but if you look at the lower jaw here, you can really see it with that yellowish coloration. Really makes that kind of scale work jump out at you a little bit more. As far as the teeth go, you can see the teeth are painted there, and they look a little bit sloppy here on this side, but not terrible. Definitely not the worst. And you can actually also see that, for the most part, the teeth are all sculpted individually. And this side, I think, also looks pretty good. This side actually looks better, I think, than the previous side, so that's definitely a plus. The inside of the mouth sports a really nice pinkish coloration for the tongue, a beautiful textured tongue in there, very nicely glossed with the beautiful gloss coat they always include on the inside of the mouths of the Mattel figures, and you can see even the skin flap here on the side of the mouth sports some really nice sculpt and detail. If we move up here into the head, you can also see that the eye is painted with a greenish coloration, a little bit of a lighter green than what you see elsewhere on the figure, and you can also see that there's kind of like some brownish type of a coloration here, as well as some blue that's sort of like design all over the head. As far as the coloration goes, it's nice to see that the eyes are painted really nicely. Let's actually take a look over here at this side. And this eye actually is a little sloppy. The pupil seems to be a little bit too far forward, but for the most part, I think the eyes look pretty good. And even from a distance, this eye looking a little bit off doesn't look terrible either. I will say that the articulated jaw is actually really smooth. Absolutely beautiful articulation right there. As we take a look at the top of the head of our Majungasaurus, you can see a few osteoderms poking up here and there, nicely sculpted out nostrils, and of course that trademark area of the Majungasaurus right there in the center of the head. You can also see that there's kind of like some ridges that run down along the spinal column as we move into the neck. You've got lots of really nice creasing in the skin as you do move down the neck, as well as kind of those osteoderms. They're actually very large osteoderms. They almost look like generally like ridges the entire way down the body. But they look really quite nice as they run down the neck there, and the skin detail also looks really beautifully done. You can also see kind of like some hanging skin down here in the throat, which looks really neat, and I love that they've kind of given the Majungasaurus that appearance here, and they do it over here on the legs. They also do it up here on the tail, so there's quite a bit of that going on. As we move into the body of the Majungasaurus, the skin texture continues to look really nice. It doesn't look much like a scale detail anymore. It looks more like just skin texture, and it looks really cool because of it. You also have the rib cage kind of shining through right there, which is nice to see. The Majungasaurus arms are very small, like you would expect them to be. They are articulated quite nicely, though, I will say that, but I do love that they've actually made the arms really small like they should be. Very beautiful looking, for sure. The nails are sculpted out nicely, as is the detailing of the hand, but you can see that, as per usual, we don't have any nail paint on the fingers, which is a little bit of a downside. As we take a look at the upper part of the back, you can continue to see the really beautiful skin texture, as well as kind of those scoots that run down along the body, those osteoderms or ridges, whatever you want to call them. And then once you get back here into the leg, you can again see some more of those kind of osteoderms poking up, some beautiful muscle tone in both the calf and the thigh area, as well as the kneecap is present right here in the front of the foot. We have again some more of like this kind of like skin hanging off of the leg. It almost looks like quills sort of in a way with the way that they've sculpted that out, but not really. And then we come down into the foot, and I really like the actual like bending of the foot. That looks really cool, and I don't really recall any Mattel figures previously having such a sharp curve right there in the foot, so that definitely looks really cool. And you can see there's like a nice scoot-like appearance that does run down the foot, down the toes, and you also have the very nicely sculpted nails. No paint on those either, of course, but you can see that the actual skin texture of the feet look really good, and you do have dew claws present back here, just of course not painted. As we move back up here into the back of the animal, you can start to see some more kind of like creasing in the skin right there. The osteoderms continue to run down the length of the dinosaur. We also have some more beautiful creasing out here onto the tail. The closer you get down here to these guys, you have like a scale type of an effect. So we have some more scales picking up similar to what we had seen up on the head. But the higher up into the tail you get, it's more of like a skin texture, sort of. So it's really cool the way they've sculpted it. And actually, if you look right here, you can see that the scale detail runs out the entire length of the tail on the underneath, but just kind of diminishes up here on the top of the dinosaur's tail. And then looking at this side, you're not really going to see too much difference because, again, the Mattel figures are pretty much the same on both sides, just the legs are in a little bit of a different position, as this leg is actually a very big different position, because this leg is really forward as opposed to this one being back quite far. And it does allow a really cool pose on the figure, a really nice kind of walking stance. But you can see that the detailing on this side is absolutely gorgeous, just like we had seen on the previous side. Very beautiful, minute detailing, especially the skin texture. Like, look at the skin texture here on the leg. That is incredibly well done. I purposely purchased another one of these Majungasaurus figures because I'm such a huge fan of this sculpt, and I really wanted to repaint one, so I'm definitely going to be repainting one of these guys very soon. Beautiful foot sculpt over here on this side, just like we had seen on the previous side. Of course, we can move the leg back to get a better idea of what the skin texture here in the stomach looks like. Absolutely gorgeous sculpt and detail in the stomach region. Again, the rib cage is present right there. And then we have the tail out here that looks just like it did on the previous side, which means it looks absolutely beautiful. You have a very nice curve, nothing overly dramatic or anything or off the wall. It looks pretty decent as far as that goes. And then the underside also sports some very nice sculpt and detail, and I was really excited to see the yellow coloration actually run so far down onto the body. I wish it would have ran out the length of the tail just because, but it's really cool to see that it actually did get like this much paint on the underside, which is definitely a plus on the part of Mattel. And you do also have the Jurassic Facts app code right there if you would like to add this to your collection. But as far as I'm concerned, this is an absolutely beautiful Majungasaurus figure, and without question, my favorite Soundstrike figure so far. As far as a size goes, from the tail to the head, you're looking at about 12 3/4 inches, closing in on about 13 inches or about 32.5, maybe almost 33 centimeters for a length. It does have a bit of like a crouched position currently. So for the height to the top of the head, about 3 3/4 inches or around 10 centimeters, maybe close to 4 inches, somewhere in that range. And that's pretty much the height for the rest of the body. You can see it's very similar. You got a good solid 4 inches here on the tail, or 10 centimeters. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our beautiful Soundstrike Majungasaurus. And with these figures next to it, you should definitely have a good idea of the size of the figure. It really is quite nicely sized. Again, fitting pretty much in the same size range as all of the other Soundstrikes for the most part, but that should tell you that it also sports some really nice size, especially seeing it next to the Papo Rex. You should be able to tell that it is definitely a sizable figure. In my opinion, probably a perfect size for this figure. As far as articulation, we of course have the articulated jaw. You can also see the neck moving there. We have articulation in the arm, which moves forward and back and out away from the body, even if it is a very small arm. You also have articulation in both legs. And then, of course, he's going to make a noise. Let him get that out of his system. But we also have articulation in the tail. And the articulation in the tail is, of course, to activate the action feature. So if we do activate that action feature, it doesn't want to stop talking to begin with. It just keeps going and going and going. But if we move the tail, it's going to, of course, activate the sounds. And then allow you to move that head all over the place by using the tail. Pretty much your standard Soundstrike action feature and the standard Soundstrike noises as far as like a theropod dinosaur goes. We always seem to kind of get those same noises on repeat, so the actual sounds are really nothing new to write home about, but I still think it's really cool, a nice addition to the figure overall. So this Mattel Jurassic World Soundstrike Majungasaurus is an absolute beast of a figure if you ask me. I am super excited to have this figure here in my collection. Again, it has a very cool appearance to it overall, a really unique appearance as far as the way they've sculpted this out, very different than most other Mattel dinosaurs, and I really do like that. I feel like Mattel kind of went a little bit as far as thinking outside the box with this one and the overall sculpt and detail of it. I really think that they've given it such a very cool, unique appearance that hopefully it will kind of inspire the filmmakers for the next film to include this in the movie, although I think at this point it might be a little too late for that, but we can hope that it'll show up in a future edition of a film. Maybe it'll be actually in the new film, who knows, but regardless, I do hope it shows up at some point because, again, Majungasaurus is amazing and it would be really cool to actually see it up there on the big screen. That would be awesome. But as far as this figure goes, I think that the sculpt is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and I'm super excited to repaint one just to kind of show off how good the sculpt truly is on the figure, because sometimes the paint jobs that Mattel gives their figures doesn't really do justice to the sculpt underneath them, and I feel like that's kind of the deal with this paint job, because the green looks nice, it definitely does look quite nice, but I feel like it's not the perfect coloration for this species. Again, it's a pretty cool looking paint scheme that they've come up with here. I really do quite like it. It's just that I feel like it could have been a little better, but at the same time, I am appreciative of the fact that they've given this quite a bit of paint application. You can see that there's like kind of like a khaki type of a tan coloration there on the face, as well as that very nice blue, and it kind of zigzags all over the animal as we move down into the neck, and then you can also see that yellow from the lower jaw pick up and kind of stripe up onto the body, and then that kind of leads all over the back of the body all the way to about the hip region, and then you can see it also runs to the underside. But other than that, we primarily just have a green, and although I think it's very unique, very different than a lot of the other Mattel figures, it's definitely not my first choice as far as what a paint scheme on a Majungasaurus I think would look like as far as actually looking good, but at the same time I don't want anybody to think that's me trashing it, because I actually do quite like the paint scheme, but just the kind of like the colors sort of drown out the sculpt a little bit. I think that's kind of the issue. But the sculpt and detail of the figure, like I had stated, is off the charts as far as the minute detailing. Beautiful scale work up there on the face, but then it transitions to a really nice skin textured type of an appearance, more like skin as opposed to scaling on the actual neck and then the body. And so we run out onto the tail, and then it transitions back to a little bit of more of like a scaly type of a look on the underside of the tail. So really cool the way they've sculpted this out. Very unique looking, again, like I had stated earlier. And we also have, just in general, a beautiful appearance to the dinosaur walking along. And they kind of have it more of like a crouched position, similar to the Irritator, which I really think is quite cool as well. So this Soundstrike Majungasaurus is an absolutely awesome figure, and definitely my new favorite as far as the Soundstrikes go. So if you would like to pick one up for yourself, you can either check Walmart.com, because they do tend to go into stock sometimes on there, or head to your local Walmart, because I have been seeing these guys pretty much everywhere lately, which is weird because I normally don't see anything Mattel that's new around my area, but these guys have been kind of showing up all over the place, so you should have a pretty good opportunity to be able to pick one up if you head to your local Walmart. One way or another, though, I definitely recommend grabbing one because they are quite awesome, so make sure you do just that, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.